I've got balls of steel.
On YouTube, I've been covering a lot of Duke Nukem related stuff, ranging from Duke Nukem 3D beta weapons, the Legacy Edition Mod, source ports, and even some games of the franchise like 3D and Time to Kill. But did you know that there's another Duke Nukem game that was released back in the 90s? Yes, it's none other than Zero Hour. This Duke Nukem game was released exclusively for the Nintendo 64 in 1999. The game was once again published by both 3D Realms and GT Interactive. However, unlike Time to Kill, this game wasn't developed by N-Space, but rather from the folks from Recomp, who at the time had some good gems like Hercules, Tarzan, and Crash Bash. But Zero Hour wasn't the only Duke Nukem game that they've made. They also developed the N64 version of Duke 3D, which was very different from the original PC port. Now, Duke fans, I have a confession to make. I've never played this game as a kid.
You what?
No, really, I've never played this game. I wasn't interested back then, until recently, and you'll soon find out why. Today we'll see if this game is just as good as Duke Nukem 3D and Time to Kill, or is it a disgrace to the King's legacy? So let's travel back in time and chew some bubblegum and find out together. But before we begin, the president of Brazil, the Cacodemon Brasileiro, has something to say.
Olá meu povo, sou eu, o Cacodemon brasileiro. A única coisa que me interessa é se vocês estão inscritos no canal MJR no YouTube. 88,2% de vocês ainda não subscreveram neste canal e isso está a irritar-me. Imploro que vocês deixem um like neste vídeo e subscrevam neste canal, senão, utilizarei os ataques contra vocês. Obrigado pela vossa atenção.
The story of Zero Hour consists of aliens that like to time travel and want to alter the course of history by, you guessed it, kill Duke Nukem's ancestors and taking over the world.
Of course!
With this in mind, Duke gets a message by the government saying that the aliens are wreaking havoc once again, but this time, Duke has to travel different time periods to eliminate aliens once and for all, which we all know that our hero will definitely whoop their asses with ease.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
What do you mean you've seen this? It's brand new.
Now, let's get real here. This isn't the first time that Duke Nukem game had a story revolving around time traveling periods. Time to Kill also had a story that also had that element. However, there is a huge difference between these two. In Time to Kill, the story was pretty superficial by Duke Nukem standards. There was no cutscenes between levels. In Zero Hour, there are cutscenes that explain the plot as you progress through the game, however briefly. But even so, it's more fleshed out than Time to Kill. Now, I get it, story is definitely secondary when it comes to games, but I think Recomp did a good job at adding cutscenes to make the game more palatable, whereas Time to Kill, it was just level after level, and there was no cutscenes besides the intro and the ending, which, in retrospective, I wish Time to Kill had more cutscenes to explain better what's going on. The gameplay of Time to Kill was very Tomb Raider-ish, which was the devs' intention with the game. So, did Recomp also follow suit with the Time to Kill's game design? Nope, not at all. At first glance, both games play identically, but there's more than meets the Duke eye. Zero Hour's gameplay feels more action-oriented than Tomb Raider. It seems more closer to its older brother, Duke 3D. For one, you can actually look up and down without standing still, which Time to Kill lacked. In that game, you had to stand still in order to look up and down. Now, that said, to the game's credit, it had auto-aim, which helped against enemies that were in different places. Zero Hour still has auto-aim, but you can adjust how much auto-aim you have, which is cool. Not to mention, Zero Hour's movement felt more organic than in Time to Kill, where the game movement was kind of limited due to the fact they were emulating the essence of Tomb Raider. Although with the mouse injection mod did alleviate these issues, it was still limited compared to Zero Hour's gameplay movement. So without any further ado, let's talk about the weapon and enemy roster of Zero Hour. I really love the weapon roster in this game, and in some ways is better than Duke 3D. Starting off with the blaster, which is a decent star weapon which acts similar to Duke's 3D pistol. It's a semi-automatic weapon that fires low damaging bolts of energy. However, you can actually dual wield them, which will do more damage and you don't have to worry about wasting ammo. seeing that enemies will drop a lot of this ammo for the weapon. By starter weapon standards, it gets the job done just fine. However, the blaster isn't the only star weapon you have. In some levels, you also start with a revolver, which acts like the blaster even with the dual wielding feature, but they are more powerful than the blaster, although its ammo supply is kind of limited. Moving on with the shotguns, we have the Claw 12 shotgun, which is a close assault weapon, excellent against close encounters, and it doesn't end there. Sometimes you find upgrades which turns the shotgun into an autoloader, which increases the fire rate dramatically, and it's really excellent against bigger enemies. That said, the Claw 12 shotgun isn't the only shotgun in the game. The sound-off shotgun also makes an appearance. And is it as good as the sound-off shotgun from Blood? Well, close enough I guess. It's pretty lethal against zombies and low tier enemies. You still get tons of ammo for it thanks to pickups, but however it is outclassed by the lever action rifle. A very go-to weapon to use. Trust me, it will be your best friend. It has increased range, but it's even more precise than the other shotguns. Really cool weapon. As for the machine guns, we have the SMG, which speaks for itself. It knows what it is. Good at cleaning hordes of low tier enemies, and just like with the blaster or revolver, you can dual wield them for more damage. The Gatling gun is really good, just as great as its time to kill variant. It sweeps tough for enemies like no tomorrow, and I was happy the Recomp didn't nerf the damage output of the gun. You love to see it. Then we have the grenade launcher, which functions as you would expect from a lethal weapon like this. It's great to jib hordes of enemies and also some mid to high tier monsters, especially with the bosses. But it also has another ammo type that shoots toxic gas, which is lethal both on you, unless you pack one of these, and the enemy. The pipe bombs and trip mines and dynamites do return and function as the same as they did on Time to Kill, so not much to talk about it. The freeze thrower also makes a return and is fine. It acts the same as it did in Duke Nukem 3D, so again, there's not much to explain. The sniper rifle. Ooh, this fucking weapon. It is the GOAT. Like, it deals massive damage to almost any enemy in the game. Yes, some enemies also carry this weapon, and it deals massive damage to the player, but again, if you have one, oh boy, it will carry you through the game like a champ. But now we reach to the alien-esque weapons. The Gamma Cannon is your typical plasma rifle that you have seen in multiple FPS games. It's decent and the bolts can bounce, and it's really hilarious if you ask me. The Volt Cannon discharges electricity at hordes of enemies, and it deals a lot of damage, and it also has low ammo consumption. Oh, and be advised, do not use the weapon on underwater. If you have played Quake 1 before, you know what I'm talking about, but for those who don't know, it will send you to the Shadow Realm if you use the cannon underwater, so don't do it. The Havoc multi-launcher is a rocket launcher type weapon that is very powerful, so powerful in fact you can actually shoot 3 rockets at once, which is overkill, and sometimes you come across heat-seeking missiles for your weapon, which is very awesome against bosses. And last but not least, we have the big motherfucking Thunderstrike, which is the BFG of this game. It has limited ammo capacity, but man, the damage is huge against hordes of enemies or bosses. Ultimately, the weapon roster of Zero Hour is actually pretty good and solid in its own right. Dare I say, it's better than Time to Kill's weapon roster. As for the enemy roster, they are fine, but they aren't pushovers by any means. Starting with Lizard Enforcers, who are the weakest enemies in the game. They wield only a blaster, but they are expanded by 4 versions. The battle variants are armed with MSG, the captain variants are the weakest and they wield dual blasters, the cyborg enforcers are tougher, using their Gatling guns to toast you, and last but not least, we have the sniper enforcers, which are very dangerous if you're sitting duck. Credit where credit is due, their attacks can be telegraphed, considering they have red aim lasers which gives you enough time to dodge their shots. Of course, it wouldn't be a Duke Nukem game without the pickups. They function the same as they did in Duke 3D, but they don't just use shotguns. Some variants of the pickup also wield grenade launchers that are lethal to the player, others have a toxic gas grenade launcher, and at some points of the game, pickups also wield a rifle to toast you to death. The Octobrains made a comeback, and they are not as annoying as in Duke 3D. If anything, they are very, very rare, which is kinda strange, seeing that the Octobrains were much more common in Duke 3D. We do also have the zombies, which are easy to dispatch if you have a sawed-off shotgun, but beware that some zombies can spew gas on you if they die, so be careful. Then we have these little spiders, which are identical to the Protozoid Slimmers from Duke 3D, and also, just like with the Protozoid eggs, they are spawned by a creature named the Spawner, which, as the name implies, it spawns new scuttlers, so prioritize that bastard if you encounter one of these. The Chimeras are tough as fuck and they spew out gas just to fuck you over. Using the grenade launcher is highly recommended against these bastards. And then you come across these huge cyborg lizards. They are durable as all hell. You know the old saying, shoot it until it dies? That pretty much sums up that evil creature. And in the late part of the game, you come across these imposter Duke Nukes that are basically evil robotic clones of Duke Nukem created by, you guessed it, the alien bastards. They're kinda dangerous, but if you have powerful weapons at your disposal, they are easy to kill. Like I said earlier, Time to Kill allowed you to enter various time periods, ranging from the Old West, Medieval era, and the Rome era. Zero Hour structure is quite identical, however the time periods that you enter are quite different. You travel around the present day, the post-apocalyptic future era, the Wild West, and the Victorian era. And to make it more saucy, each time period has its own weaponry. For example, in the present day, you could only encounter combat shotguns and handguns. Meanwhile, in the Old West area, the revolver and rifle are exclusive in that era. Also, there are variants of pickups in those time periods, which I love it. And I was expecting Zero Hour to do that, seeing that Time to Kill did that thing as well, so I wasn't disappointed. As for the difficulty, the game isn't that difficult, even on the hardest setting. Yes, I did die at some points in the game, but that was either my stupidity or the enemy got smarter and killed me, but the campaign itself was a breeze. As for the level design, for an N64 game, it's actually pretty good. Now granted, it'll never be as excellent as the levels from Duke 3D, but they are functional and memorable. I really love traveling around the levels of the Old West. The post-apocalyptic levels were pretty cool to explore and they were visually gorgeous. The Victorian levels were daunting, creepy, and foggy. And the set pieces were also cool. For instance, in the final level of the Old West, there's a mine level, which was similar to the one from Time to Kill, but the difference here is that you can ride a minecart and the game briefly turns the game into a gallery shooter, which was pretty fun, though I'm aware the longtime X64 fans would have a frustrating time with it, but for me it was the opposite, but I'll explain why when we get to the surprising tool that will help us later. Oh, one thing I forgot is that just like in Duke 64, you can also save babes, which will replenish your health by 10 HP, which is good in the pinch. You can also fight secret levels in Zero Hour, but there is one that requires to find specific parts in order to unlock it. In almost every level, at least the early levels that is, you come across these items which are the time machine parts, which while not required to beat the game, they are required to unlock the super secret level in the game. And what happens when you can collect all of them? You unlock this level that resembles the freaking Titanic of all things. The level itself is fine for what it is, although the final part of the level has you backtrack to the start of the level, because the entire ship is getting flooded. And I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty scared that I would leave Duke drowned if I didn't make on time. It was really intense. Like in Time to Kill, the game also has bosses and they are really pushovers. I'm gonna be honest, they are a joke, especially one boss that looks like the final boss from a go-to FPS game that we all know and love. Now to be fair, there is one boss that didn't require to spam bullets as much as you can, and it actually required to shut down some machines so that it can stop working. But I also found hilarious that at some point you fight fucking Jack the Ripper of all people. I'm gonna be honest, I left my ass off with this set piece. I mean, Duke Nukem isn't just a man with balls of steel, he cares about women. That's why he's the fucking GOAT. We all like Duke Nukem.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Going in the bosses even further, the final boss, Zero, quite befitting name by the way, kinda looks like the Cyclic Emperor had wings. His attacks consist of shooting bolts, spewing toxic spray at you, firing lasers, and using a stop attack, and sadly by final boss standards, he's the worst. What a pathetic weakling. Like, you can actually avoid his attack with ease. Yes, it's a bullet sponge, but he's a pussy ass weakling. Yes, its top attack can paralyze Duke, but if you jump as just as he using that attack, you will not take damage. Hell, on my first playthrough, I didn't even die in the final level. It was easy as pie. Well, maybe a little too easy, and I'm gonna be real with you, I'd rather face the Cyclone Emperor than Zero. At least there were some sort of stakes in that level, as one rocket and you'll be sent home to the next dimension. Yeah, I said what I said. Speaking of controls, at the time 0 Hour felt fine. Use the stick to turn left and right, look up and down, and the C buttons to move Duke, the Z button to fire, the R button to jump, the B button to open stuff, and some button combinations like A plus D-pad for changing weapons. When I played this game on the N64, it felt very dated and kinda awkward. It wasn't the most pleasant experience that I had with this game. Even when trying with the other control modes, it still wasn't the most optimal experience. Probably because the N64 controller was greasy as fuck. Like, this has to be one of the worst controllers ever, and it will die on that hill. So, you might be saying, oh good lord, is the game doomed forever? You would be wrong, my dear viewer, because recently the game has been completely decompiled, meaning any person could make a PC port of this game. And guess fucking what? The game has been ported to PC by using static recompilation, meaning that you don't even need to emulate the game. But wait, it gets even better! A guy named Kyyrma decided to go even further beyond by adding tons of quality of life improvements for the game. Aptly named Duke Nukem Zero Hour Overclocked, what this mod does, you may ask? Well, basically, besides having keyboard and mouse support, the game actually lets you play this game in a first-person perspective, among other quality of life improvements that I'll mention later. Chief among them being letting you throw a punch or a grenade while using any weapon, toggling inventories with a hotkey, removing overscanned borders, etc. Not to mention that also saving is different. In the original N64 versions, players had to complete a level so that they could save. In the PC version, this is similar, but the game now has quick save and quick load options which can help you in a pinch, seeing that the original game lacked checkpoints. Hell, you can even revisit previous levels if you missed some secrets and shit. And man, when I first played this game with keyboard and mouse, it felt surreal, like it's as if the game reached its full potential. Gone were the days of using that mid-ass N64 controller. Playing the game with right tools was the real deal. And yes, playing the game with modern controls also felt good, but nothing beats playing the game with a keyboard and mouse. Oh, and did I mention that you can play this game in the first person perspective? Yes, you can, and it really feels like Duke Nukem Forever if it was actually good and finished back in the 90s. Like seriously, hear me out. What if, stick with me folks, what if 0 Hour was Forever the whole time, and Forever that we got was basically a bootleg Chinese knockoff? Like, yes, the game wouldn't look the same as the trailers from 1998, but from what I experienced with this game, this feels way better than Forever when it was released in 2011. And unsurprisingly, not only that garbage was outclassed by Duke 3D, but also outclassed by Time to Kill and 0 Hour, and that's saying something. This mod is compatible with Windows, macOS, and Linux. All you need is a ROM of 0 Hour and you're good to go. And yes, it also works on the Steam Deck, so there's that for those who want to play the game on the go. It's easily the definitive way to play this game. Once you play this game with this mod, you can never go back to the original N64 version. It's day and night. Huge thanks for these amazing Duke Nukem fans for the creation of these tools. You guys are fantastic. For a Nintendo 64 game, 0 Hour looks pretty decent. The game models look good, especially with the Zero's model feels more detailed than the Cyclone one from Duke 64, which seems to me that Recomp learned from what they did with that alien model and decided to improve their skills on making models for the next game, and it definitely shows. The explosion effects feel very badass, the fog, the shadows, and dynamic lighting are pretty well made by console standards. Not to mention that 0 Hour also uses some textures from Duke 3D, which is pretty cool. On top of that, while the cutscenes are far from perfect, they are fine. I mean, to be honest, you can only do so much with the cartridge limitations of the N64, so yeah. While the game, at least in the original hardware, does have frame drops, the recompiled port runs at a consistent speed, which is pretty cool, and this is very impressive considering that it's running under the build engine.
Say that again?
under the build engine.
Say that again.
Under the build engine.
What did you say, nigga?
Yes, I'm not lying. This fucking game, is running under the build engine. You know, the engine that powers many good games like Blood, Shadow Warrior, Iron Fury, and fucking Duke 3D. When I first heard this, I was in absolute shock. Like, there's no fucking way that this game looks good for an N64 game, is running on a game engine that was like 6 years old, and the engine was pretty much outdated when games like Quake 2 and Unreal arrived. But somehow the people from Recomp did the unthinkable. But to be honest, they did use a custom version of this engine so they could support long draw distance, ambient effects like fog, dynamic lighting, all of that jazz. Still though, this was a high IQ moment from them. This was even more true when people tried to load Zero Hour assets in eDuke 32 back in 2017. This was mind blown to say the least. Come to think of it, out of the 4 main build engine games, Duke 3D is the only build engine game that, as far as I know, that it got a sequel that runs under the same engine that powered the original game. It's insane. The other time that I saw this similar phenomenon was with classic Doom trilogy, Doom, Doom 2, and Final Doom, which run under the same engine that powered the original Doom. Total insanity. Man, I swear, Recomp must have some dope ass magic to make this happen, and I applaud them for their efforts. The soundtrack of Zero Hour was composed by Neil Baldwin, who made music for Mortal Kombat Gold, Hydro Thunder, and 007 The World Is Not Enough. And while it won't beat the music from Duke 3D, it's actually quite solid in its own right. The remix version of Grabback is pretty catchy as all hell, not to mention the other songs are fucking badass. as sound effect goes, they pack a punch as you'd expect from a Duke Nukem game. As for the voice acting, John St. John and his sister Lonnie Manella, who also voice in some games like Diablo, Smash Brawl, Airblade, and Bubsy 3D. What? John St. John voiced all the male characters as well as the Alien Zero. Now, what about his effort on Duke Nukem in this game? Well, his one-new-liners are funny and great. It made me chuckle a lot.
Hey, genius, what are you waiting for? Damn, I'm looking good. Don't just stand there, shoot something. Yeah, you're just what I'd expect to find, floating in a sewer. I ain't ready for a gravestone yet. There's something about hydrogen and explosives. Damn, that's a long way down. I ain't going down on this. Move it, I'm freezing my nuts off. I'm the king of the world. I'd better blow this crack. Great, what am I supposed to use? Harsh language?
Now, the voice quality is kind of a downgrade, seeing that the one-liners from Time to Kill had a much higher audio quality, but that's to be expected considering that CDs had more storage than cartridges, something that Time to Kill was superior than Zero Hour in that regard. That being said, I don't blame Recomp for this. Blame the kids from Nintendo who decided to go for cartridges than CDs. We all know how well that turned out. So, is Zero Hour any good? Well, for a long time, it has been one of the most forgotten games from the franchise, and a great one at that. It actually feels like a true successor to Duke 3D. Its gameplay is pretty good, the arsenal is really solid, and it packs a atomic punch. The level design is good for N64 standards, even though they are not as excellent as the levels from Duke 3D, but they still get the job done, and considering that this game runs under the build engine, Recomp has done an incredible job pushing the engine to its maximum limits in terms of visual fidelity. Although the controls in the original didn't age well with the passage of time, though you can also thank for the N64 mid-ass controller for the most part. Thanks to Duke Nukem fans, the game not only got decompiled, but also recompiled so that it can play natively on PC. Not to mention, the Overclocked mod turns the game into a different beast, with quality of life improvements that benefits the game to a T, making the definitive way to play this game. The soundtrack is pretty cool, and the new one-liners are quite funny to hear, back when John St. John was at its maximum power. At the end of the day, Zero Hour is a really great game that just got much better thanks to fans who put much more effort than Gearbox and Greasy Bastard will ever do for the franchise. And as for the Overclocked mod, I have great faith that it will get better over time. So, to put it bluntly, this game has balls of steel.